Fabulous. Okay, good morning, everyone. The purpose of this presentation is really focusing on onboarding, orientation, mentoring, and offboarding for administrators. In HR, we talk a lot about this topic when it comes to our staff, but oftentimes administrators are left out. So this is all focused about our administrators. So good morning, I'm Dr. Monica Schrader. I am the Deputy Superintendent of North Shore School District 112. I'm also the President-elect of ASPA.
Hi, I'm Michael Rodrigo. I'm a principal in North Shore 112. I work at a K-5 elementary school where I've been for the past 6 years. I'm very excited because I'm actually transitioning out of my role as a principal, and next school year I'll be the Director of Personnel Services in our district working with Monica. So timely for me to be here and kind of share some of our journey with you.
So just to kind of share a little bit about who we are, and I think it's always good to kind of like put in perspective our school district and our organization to kind of think like, can I pull something like this off in my HR office? So North Shore School District is comprised of 9 schools. We are a pre-K-8 school district. In Illinois, the way that we are organized, we have over 880 school districts. It's very different than in other states. So we are focused primarily on just pre-K-8. We serve the communities of Highland Park, Highwood, and the town of Fort Sheridan. We have just over 550 staff members. We have 3,800 students. Our average class size is about 20. And just to share with you like what my team looks like in the HR office, as a deputy superintendent, I am in charge of all functions of HR, and I also oversee the director of communications, the director of safety and security, and also the director of technology and operations. My team is just consisting of 2 executive assistants. One primarily oversees all functions related to our classified staff, and the other one is our certified staff and our administrators. And then I have a teacher on special assignment who oversees our mentoring program and all things related to our guest teachers. And then I have a retired part-time HR manager who's phenomenal. He was my predecessor. He works for me about 0.3, and he kind of helps with everything that I can't always get to. Sometimes it's the ADA accommodations, right? Or sometimes it's an investigation having to do with the guest teacher or substitutes. So he helps out in those ways. So we are a small but mighty office. And I just wanted to put into context when we roll out some of these practices for you to think about how it's done in our organization, how you could either scale up or scale down. Okay, so if you haven't heard, the NFL draft was very good to our Chicago Bears. So we were able to finally draft an amazing quarterback, Caleb Williams. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is that every initiative needs a quarterback. Someone needs someone to have a vision and be able to carry things through. So in this organization, when it comes to these practices, it's me. It doesn't always have to be the head of your HR department. It could be someone who's assigned in a different role, but you need someone to actually have this vision, because when we're talking about onboarding and when we're talking about offboarding, you have to really think about someone needs to have that vision that this is all about communications and relationships and making sure that someone understands that we need to connect all these pieces because we have a lot of people that are involved in this process. Okay, so the purpose of today, our learning intention. We always ask our teachers to share that with our students, so we're sharing that with you today. Today, our focus is primarily on onboarding, orientation, mentoring, and offboarding of administrators, as we mentioned. And you will know that you're successful when you can articulate or recognize practices to successfully onboard, orient, mentor, and support administrators as they enter and exit organizations. Okay, so just starting out, I think it's really important to just remember this. As we select our administrators, and prior to that board approval for their recommendation for employment, it's really important to just kind of remember that communication matters from the get-go. When you're scheduling those interviews, that's when we start building relationships with these people. Administrators are different than teachers. You know, prior to me being a deputy superintendent, I was an associate principal, I was a principal, I was assistant superintendent for HR. Oftentimes when we're interviewing administrators, they've already had experience as administrators, or for some of them, they've taught for a while, and then this is the first time they're interviewing outside of their organization or even internally for this role. So I think it's really important as we build those relationships or we continue those relationships for the people that are transitioning into a new role. it's really articulating like, what's the timeline of the process? What will each format of the interviews look like? I often tell our people that are interviewing in our district, I've got some associate principal interviews tomorrow. And I always say, hey, just so that you're aware, we bring you in for a site interview, that includes our superintendent, that includes our entire cabinet, that includes the building principal and the current associate principals, so that when they walk in the room, they're not surprised. And I always hear from our candidates later, those that we welcome into our organization, and then those also that we've said, you know what, you're not quite ready for this role in our organization. They've always come back and said, I really appreciate how transparent you were and how communicative you were throughout the process. I think it's also really important if you have an odd setup for the interviews. We interview in a conference room on a third floor of our district office that I always tell them, like, when you open up the elevator, just know you're in the conference room. So if you're adjusting your hair, if you're kind of like, kind of prepping, realize that you're basically walking into the interview setting. And they always appreciate the fact that we've prepared them to walk into a room where all of the interviewers are right there. I think it's also important to think about, like, really thinking from the beginning of, like, how do you make this special for the person that you're offering the contract to? Again, in our organization, we're pretty small. So when we offer a contract, I love to bring the candidate in and have the superintendent be part of that interview. I know that in all organizations, that's not possible because some of you are much larger than us, but I always think about, like, how can I bring someone in if he's not available? If it's an associate principal, I bring in the principal, because this is life-changing for some people. And I think it's really important that it's not just about offering a contract, it's really celebrating that moment. We also talk about, like, what does communication look like between districts? Like, once you've offered a position, I know that our candidates are always so grateful to hear. So here's what's going to happen. Our director of communications is going to reach out to your director of communications, or we're going, this is the next board meeting. When's your next board meeting? I think that's really important, again, to make candidates feel like we're going to take care of them. Also, I think it's important in our organization, we do want our candidates to be present for the board meetings when their employment contracts are being approved. And our board likes to hear a little speech. So you never want to invite someone there and not have a speech prepared. I know that when we welcome our administrators in, they're always so grateful to hear the full story of, like, what to expect when they come in here.
Yeah.
And then it's the board meeting. One of the things that we talk about is that we really, and Michael's going to talk about this, that we really focus on building peak moments.
Yeah.
And we want to recognize and celebrate our administrators as we bring them in. So our director of communications, he contacts the media, he puts out press releases, we put it in social media. Our staff knows that it's coming and they get excited because they want to see who's this person. They attend the board meetings if they can. And Michael's going to talk a little bit about, like, how we also try to make that special as we bring people into our organization. Because the way we look at this is all part about building relationships and going into our onboarding of our new staff.
Yeah, Monica, I think you said two things that really, really stand out to me is just making sure that you take care of people and make sure that they feel special. And when you're hiring someone into a new role, you might be hiring them in February, you might be hiring them in March, and they might be at their current role still. And that's a long time until they join you in July. So what are you doing in between then to make them kind of feel valued, appreciated, and accepted? So one of the things I think Monica has done an incredible job with her team is really bringing in this level of welcoming swag. And now it's a silly term, but first of all, who doesn't love swag? Whether you're at a conference, there's a reason all the vendors have them on their tables. There's when you go to a sporting event, when they shoot the t-shirts up, everyone jumps up and grabs them because everyone loves free swag. But better yet, swag that tell a story of your district. They tell you about your brand and they make you kind of feel like you are a part of something before your original start date. So one of the things that we've done a really nice job in our district is making people feel very valued through material items such as t-shirts or notebooks or et cetera. So I want to show you some examples of things that we do to really make someone feel like they're a part of 112. So one thing that's really special about our district is we really believe in the power of positive psychology. Whether it's Sean Akers, Orange Frog, we want people to just be their best versions of themselves. So what we do when you are board approved, right away, we send you your Orange Frog t-shirt. I mean, look at these three people. I mean, I can't really tell you how often people are super excited to wear orange, but our staff are. Because this is not just an orange t-shirt, but this really just tells the story about who we are as a district. We believe in positive psychology. We believe in trying to find peak moments to make people feel happy. And along the way, we do a lot of little things. We make sure that we give our staff the art of science and teaching, which is the story of who we are instructionally. We talk about our DI initiatives or cultural pieces, or just provide little things like laptop case bags. The idea behind it is before you step foot into the building on the first day, we want you to be a part of the we. And I think pictures like this demonstrate that a t-shirt or a notebook or a bag can make someone feel really, really valued. For myself, transitioning roles, I have to tell you, Monica and the cabinet and the Board of Education did some really special things for me that really made me feel like I was part of something a little bit bigger beyond my building. So this is what I got when I joined the team for the personnel department. So first of all, Monica gave me a copy of the Pyramid Success for John Wooden with leadership principles, which I have hanging in here. I got a pair of Ted Lasso socks. And I think this is the point I want to make sure that we kind of get across is like Monica knew that Ted Lasso was something that it was a show that I really believed in and the value behind his leadership styles. But I think it fits HR really well because sometimes you just have to be a goldfish and forget about what happened the day before and move on to the last piece. But not the least, last is this. I hope you can see it right now, is the binder. I had seen this for years. Cabinet members had it, board members had it. It was something that was seen and everyone knew that when you had one of these, you were something special. And now it was something that was kind of passed along to me. So it's not necessarily what you're providing people, it's just the opportunity and the time that you take to make people feel like they're a part of the greater we. And that's how we kind of use some of our welcome swag to make people feel a little bit appreciated.
Thank you, Michael. I'll share. I'm sure all of you have had this experience where, teachers start the school year with the calendar school year, right? They
Yeah.
start usually in August, or in some states, my gosh, some people are starting to enter July now, I think. But administrators typically start at the beginning of their fiscal year, which is July 1, which
Yeah.
is such a weird time because, a lot of people take time off during the 4th of July. So I remember when I first started on July 1, I walked in and I had my keys and I was like, hello, is anyone
Yeah.
working today? Like, is anyone in our school districts? Like, when does everyone come to work?
Yep.
Where's my laptop? Or gosh, I'm like, where is everything? So this next section is really important because again, I feel like we used to focus a lot on teacher orientation and how to prepare our teachers for success. But it was our administrators that I felt like we felt short on, especially in the summer. So this next part, the entry plan, I think is really important. So right now, my team's already building this. This is an example of what we do. We already send them, starting by June 1, I want to get this out. We send kind of a letter to each of our new administrators or those that are transitioning into a new role. We tell them what their start date is and what the first day in the office is. Because some people upon hire will tell me hey, Monica, I have a vacation already planned. I'm not going to be there the first week of July. Totally fine, right? We work that out. But that way everyone knows what their actual start date is and when they're going to be in the office. We're going to talk a little bit about who their go-to person is. I'll share a little bit about that. And then we also, again, talk about who can you contact if you have a question?
Yeah.
We set up our teachers with mentors, but the administrators, it's kind of who's my guide, right? And I've shared with you, I've been their guide throughout the recruitment and selection process. It's who are you being handed off to? So Michael's going to click and show you a little bit more about the entry plan. So I have heard from our administrators that they literally bookmark this for the whole
Yes.
month that they work. It really just shares with them a little bit about hey, how do we get going on some of the processes here in the district? It shows you what happens when you need to take a day off. It shows you what devices you're going to be getting. In our, organization, you're going to be getting an iPad, you're going to be getting a laptop, you're going to be getting a district cell phone, all those things. We also lay out what are the technology access and how do you get into some of our technology, technology support, maintenance support, digital curricular resources. Again, these people are starting in July. Sometimes they're given a laptop and they're like, I don't even know who to contact when I have an issue with my technology and people are on vacation. So we kind of list out all the different systems that we use and who to go to if they need help. People have shared from the get-go that this is so helpful for them to feel a little bit of independence, especially that first week of work when everything is new to them. Okay. As we've mentioned, communication is key. And we also communicate a newsletter to our new administrators. And what we think about is, I have 9 schools plus the district office. So people want to know, like, who's joining my team with me? And hey, it's July 1. Like, tell me a little bit about like what's the culture in the summer? Because we all know that in our organizations, the culture in the summer is a little bit different than the culture in the school year. So Michael's going to click on this newsletter that again, I share before July 1. It's a welcome letter. It talks about like how you dress in the summer, where you park, like some of our school districts, like, like they go to visit certain buildings and, like our district office is in a downtown area. People are like, I have no idea where I'm going to park. What are the work hours? Again, like in a school year, people pretty much know what their work hours are, but when it comes to summer
Mhm.
hours, sometimes it's confusing. What if I want to take a vacation? Also, like in our school district, on Fridays are half days. Sometimes people don't even have to work on Fridays. Like communicating all those little things up front are so helpful for people as they join an organization. Um, the other thing that we do, like this was, I believe, last year,
Yeah.
July 1 was on a weekend. So the actual first day of work was Monday, July 3rd. So I communicate with our leadership team and I said, hey, we have, about 8 people that are joining our organization. Who's going to be here on July 3rd? Let's plan a luncheon. And
Mhm.
then what we do is, it's kind of like the new kid in the cafeteria, like, where am I going to sit? What's lunch like? Everyone knows ahead of time, like, we're taking you out to lunch, from 11 to 12, we're going to pick up the tab and here's the location. And it just puts people at ease and they love it because they connect with other administrators on their very first day. We also share with them, like, how do we communicate? Yes, we give you like these district cell phones, but in our district, our leadership team members use something called Voxer. So we get them set up right away so that they know on day 1 that this is how we kind of communicate internally in our district. I share this with you, like, you're not alone. We share who are the new people. We share what are their roles. And I think that's always nice to know, like, okay, I'm joining this organization with other people as well. And then we talk about who their go-to person is, and I'll share with you that in a little bit, and then also orientation meetings. But I will tell you, I hear this all the time from people, and especially other administrators who have come from other districts. They said they have not experienced this kind of welcome, and it makes a huge difference. And sometimes when people leave our organizations and go to different ones, they're like, I miss this communication. By the way, everything is linked to our
Yes.
presentation and you have access to this. Oftentimes I'll have people reach out to me after this saying like, can I see your newsletter? Like you'll have access to all this. What Michael's showing you right now, it's called our leadership team dashboard. And I don't have this linked only because it has some important information that can't be shared outside of this organization, but we kind of have it all in one place where people could go to look for their agendas for our leadership team. Those are all the administrators in the district, right? And anything that's important for people to kind of know in each of our sites, this is linked here. Some people use their website, some people use a different portal, whatever it is, just make sure you communicate to administrators as they come into the organization. Where is it that they can find certain items? I think it's really important for people to find that agency and that independence as they come in, to not always rely on other people to tell them, to try to give them upfront some of this information so they feel that they could kind of navigate this on their own time as well.
Oh, peak moments. Okay, so this is honestly one of my most favorite topics to talk about. It's something that is just a key tenet of my leadership practices, and it's something we truly believe in North Shore 112 as well. Whenever we hire somebody new, whether it's a teacher, whether it's an administrator, we really strive to create something called a peak moment. Now, a peak moment is something just, it can be something small. It doesn't need to be a large thing, but it's a special moment that somebody really truly remembers. It's that kind of experience that makes you feel valued, makes you feel appreciated, or just even recognized. And I think what we're facing right now as we look at our recruitment challenges across the field or retention challenges, these peak moments are becoming more and more important. Now, if you're not familiar what a peak moment is, that is absolutely okay. 3 or 4 years ago, I had no idea what it was either until I saw this next example that really kind of put everything in perspective for me. So I want to show you a hotel. Now, I've never stayed at this hotel. It is incredibly too fancy for me. It is not in my pay range, but maybe one day. This is the Four Seasons Hotel in Los Angeles at Beverly Hills. Now, you probably heard of this hotel because it is a very famous hotel for a lot of different reasons. First of all, if you look at that middle picture, I mean, look at that room. Not many hotel rooms look that pristine. The amount of money that they spent on all the little details and the fixtures is truly incredible. You see the pools. I mean, that looks like something out of a movie, but that is really what their pools look like. On top of it, it has been the scene of many movies. We know that celebrities often come here for lunch or just to hang out. It is an incredible hotel. Now, the shocking thing is, a couple years ago, when you looked at TripAdvisor, this wasn't actually the #1 rated hotel in all of California. It was actually #2. So I know that's probably pretty hard to think about for everything I said, the rooms, the pool, the cabanas, the celebrities. So you're probably asking yourself right now, if this is #2, what is #1? Well, hold on a second. I'm going to show you. Here is the #1 rated hotel in all of California, according to TripAdvisor from a couple years ago. So before I go into it, let's just point out the obvious. It's bright yellow. That is probably not the most common hotel color you've seen. The pool is not on par with the Beverly Hills one. The rooms, honestly, are quite outdated. So what is so special about this hotel? And how does a peak moment come into play? Well, let's look at this little girl over here with this little popsicle hotline. What is special about this hotel is that they create these small little moments for their guests that they truly remember. The popsicle hotline. You pick up that phone anytime during the day, someone on the other end will answer, and they will say to you, what flavor popsicle would you like? For free, no charge, someone will come out with a silver platter, white gloves, and they will hand you the popsicle. There is no limit in terms of popsicles you want. I just came back from Disneyland a couple weeks ago with my family. That popsicle would have cost me $12.50. It is free here. You don't like popsicles? No worry. There's another phone just down the road. You want chips? You want candy? You want a Gatorade? You want a pop? Pick up the phone. It comes to you of no charge. On top of that, breakfast every morning is free. They have an amazing spread of breakfast, and they have magicians inside the lobby while you're eating breakfast performing tricks. Still not good enough for you? Here's the kicker. Free laundry service. You turn in your clothes later that day, your shirt, your pants, your dress, it's nicely folded. It's got the little the little wire tied up and a little bit of lavender sitting on top. When you go to TripAdvisor and you read all the reviews, no one says anything about the rooms. No one says anything about the pool. Literally review after review after review is the same thing. Oh my goodness, my kids love the popsicle hotline. It's all they talk about. It's been 6 months. They want to go back. Oh, the magician, he was so much fun. My kids absolutely loved it. I had a meeting the next day. They did free laundry. My clothes came back lavender. All of the reviews say the same thing. Nothing says anything about the yellow facade. And the reason behind that is Dan and Chip Heath had this book called Power of the Moments. And it specifically talks about people are willing to forget about this or not remember this as long as they're treated and given access to these peak special moments. These little tiny moments have the real power to just make us happy, make us feel valued, make us feel like we belong. And so when we look back a little bit ago, when I got hired and I got those socks and I got that wooden and I got that binder, that's all I remember from the night. Because Monica created that peak moment for myself. And that's something we strive to do for all our staff in 112. So we started off with our administrators on day 1. These are pictures from our administrators. These are their offices. One of the things that we do is, as a leadership team, we all get on board to make sure that when you walk into your office for the first time, it's something special. When I joined the district 6 years ago, and I think Monica, you apply something, say something similar. I walked in, it was my receptionist. I came to my office, I sat down, and I was like, all right, now what? So we've learned from that experience. We've learned from that. Now what we do is principals and APs, they decorate the office of one another. So when you walk in, you've got t-shirts and swags and balloons, and it makes you feel like you made the right choice. You're valued. It's a peak moment. We have our business officer. I mean, we literally had our CSBO go around decorating things. That level of joy from a CSBO or any finance person is very rare, but they understand the power of peak moments. Our buildings and grounds team is driving around, dropping things off, giving tours. We're creating these peak moments for people on day one, and it's a thing that they remember and they still talk about. And the great thing about that is, since we've started to do it up top at the high level where their admin or district office staff, it's trickling down now to our principals. And our principals and our assistant principals, they're doing it for our staff. Whether it's writing kind notes in a box and giving you candy into t-shirts, or setting up breakfast spreads and balloons, or decorating doors. Our staff are now getting an opportunity to experience these peak moments. And as a building principal, what I can tell you is the more peak moments I started creating for my staff, the more peak moments my staff started creating for my kids. And that circular thing kind of came full circle. So when we talk about peak moments, the big thing behind it is it doesn't need to be this extravagant event. It doesn't need to be something you truly plan out. It's these small random acts that really make people feel special. And that is something we try to do in 112 from the moment you get hired throughout your tenure here until you hopefully retire with us.
Thank you, Michael. Can you go back really quick to that
Yeah, of
picture?
course.
I want to point this out. On that left-hand side, do you mind like describing like what that is about, just to like let people
Yeah.
know? Obviously, you've experienced peak moments, what you've done
Yeah.
for new staff at your building.
Yeah, so the farm one is one of my staff members. So on their first day back, we had these boxes that were hidden under their chairs, and we met in the our library. They had no idea, was hidden under their chairs. And when they got done with their meeting, they sat down, had their coffee, their breakfast. We had them go under their chairs. And when they opened up the box, there was an array of things in it. They opened it, and the first thing they saw was a message that we wrote to them, just reflecting on their leadership and how they've impacted our school and how much we appreciated them. And inside that box was all of their favorite things, whether it was a favorite candy, a t-shirt, a lanyard. And if you see it over there, there's a little orange frog, but we also had a little lapel pin for their years of service. Just wanted to recognize them for their 2, their 3, their 10 years they were here. Just a tiny little note like that went an incredible long way. And this is a tweet from one of our teachers, unprompted, just kind of sharing the impact that me taking 5 minutes to write a note or going on Amazon and buying a bunch of candy had on them. It was a truly special thing that significantly impacted our culture.
Thank you. So
Of course.
speaking of culture,
Yeah.
it's really important as you onboard new administrators to really share what's your organization's why. I mean, people will say, well, we're here for kids. Well, of course we're here for kids, right? Or people will say, we're here to impact their learning. We're here to impact social emotional learning in positive ways. I think it's really important to articulate that and also not only just verbalize it, but also for them to experience it through actions. So Michael's going to show one of the first things that we do is we really make people understand that culture, building a positive culture, is really important here. So you've heard Michael mention Orange Frog. You've heard him talk a little bit about, positive psychology. Years back, prior to the pandemic, you'll see the orange frogs behind me. We read a book called The Happiness Advantage by Sean Aker. He's a Harvard psychologist. And, I'll just have you just pause and just read this quote that he wrote. So I'll do a little bird walk and share with you. It's probably about now 6 years ago. I was listening to a superintendent probably about 30 minutes away from here, Andy DeRoss in Schaumburg, Illinois. And he was talking about how they have transformed their school district, not just academically, but also really focusing on how to build more optimism, more resiliency through Sean Aker's work. And I remember thinking to myself, like, wow, being an HR leader is sometimes really hard because we hear a lot about what's going on, not just in people's like professional lives, but also their personal lives. And I was kind of carrying that with me, thinking like, how can I help people just, be better versions of themselves and help with that like mental wellness. And I remember reading The Happiness Advantage, like literally over a weekend. And what I loved about it is that there were actual strategies and practices that the individual could put into place to make themselves better And then obviously that impacts, it has that ripple effect into your organization, right? Because that's the point, is it's not just about you, but it's also how you impacted, like your fingerprints in the organization. And so I said to our teachers union, I talked to the staff, I said, what do you think? Do you guys want to do a voluntary book study in the summer? And they were like, is this part of our evaluation? I'm like, nope, it's all voluntary. And sent out a form. And out of 550 staff members, 350 of them said they'd either join the voluntary book study or they would read the book. That's huge. We've never had that many people engage. And as we experienced that together, I heard many people saying, thank you. While I really do appreciate reading about like the science of reading, right? Or while I appreciate you sharing with me about like cultural responsive teaching in the brain, I haven't experienced anything about like how to help me, like how to help my well-being.
Mhm.
So what Michael's going to show you is that that work was really pivotal in our organization as we built a positive environment. And we really wanted to increase our staff engagement. It wasn't just through the book studies, it was also through engaging people in really looking at data and building goals at their school level to improve the culture. So what I'm showing you is that every year we do a culture assessment at the beginning of the school year. And just to kind of put in perspective, 6 years ago, the first time we gave this, our organization was at 63% highly engaged and highly satisfied. When we gave the same culture assessment this year, 93% of our staff responded, and over 80% of them shared that they are highly engaged and highly satisfied. 80% of our staff, just put that in perspective. And
Yeah.
then of that, when you look at the box, like that was the red, those black circles in the middle, that's somewhat engaged to highly. So like totally, we had 96.69% of our staff, almost 97% of our staff say they're even somewhat engaged.
Yeah.
And so to kind of put this in perspective, how that compares to the business world's only 35%. They're kind of grumpy. And then education in general, it's like 65%. So like this didn't just happen overnight. These are like these tiny, micro practices that we put in place over and over to form these habits that are able to get our organization to where it is today. And that's why it's so important for us to share our why with administrators, because everyone's a part of this happening. It's not just the staff, it's our principals, our superintendents, it's our directors of operations, it's our director of transportation. We just celebrated our bus drivers last week. She had this beautiful luncheon for them. And, bringing people together, having the cabinet members there saying, thank you, you are the most important person that our kids see at the beginning of the day matters. And that's why sharing that organization's why from the get-go with your administrators is really critical, because these things impact your organization. They impact your staff engagement, your student engagement. It impacts your achievement and academic success as well.
Yeah, Monica, I think I should say any better. Understanding and explaining your organizational why is so important, and making people feel celebrated and valued. And so that's something we've kind of continued to try to build off throughout the year. We do that peak moments throughout the year for all of our staff members and make them kind of feel just supported and valued. Whether it's Principal Appreciation Week, where we provided our teachers or one of our principals on the left with new long sleeve shirts with our hashtag on to make them feel valued and accepted. Or something I think we've done really well recently, and I think, Monica, I know you do a lot of this, and we do it a lot at the building level too, is just the simple practice of making it a purpose to write handwritten notes. I think we kind of take it for granted today with the emails and all those other things, but there's just something to be said about getting something in your mailbox or waiting for you at school. Just someone took the time to write a note saying how much they appreciate you. And I have to be honest with you, and I don't want to turn my screen around right now because it'll completely throw up this whole presentation. But on my whiteboard right now, I've got 4 or 5 different notes that I've received from either Monica or our superintendent, just with a kind word. And it's not even necessarily just so much the words, but just the fact that they took the time during their day to just appreciate me or recognize me. It really goes a long way. And because of that, once again, we see that trickle down effect
Mhm.
where our leaders are doing it for our staff. Monica did it once for me. I ended up writing a letter to one of my teacher's kids, and I mailed it to their house. And then that teacher was so moved by it. She actually took the weekend and wrote letters to every single kid in her class. Every kid got that letter. And what they ended up doing is they gave up their lunch and recess time and they went around and put post-it notes with a kind note in every single kid's locker. Now, I know that's probably a big example, but that's the kind of impact this recognition can have. And then last year, we actually gave every one of our staff members a 112 hat, which we gave them to our staff members, not the dog. But this thing kind of went on a different thing. But our staff member he loved this hat so much. He put it on his dog and he posted it on Twitter and actually turned into this whole thing that, it was not 112 leads, but then it turned into dogs of 112. And it may sound silly, but it was a way for people to connect and feel appreciated. And then just last school year, we started our very first recognition ceremony where we got employees together for 5 years of service, 10 years of service. And if you made it up to 35, we had a big, beautiful ceremony where all our district leaders came, the teachers came, we had lunch, we gave gifts, and we just celebrated people. So it's that common practice of just always kind of remembering that creating those peak moments along the way and continuing to recognize people can have such a positive impact on your culture. And it's one of the reasons we went from 60% to 80% in such a short period of time.
And I think, Michael, I really appreciate you sharing that. Like I've got right on the corner, you could see I've got my
Yep.
wall of like,
Mhm.
notes I get from staff members and parents, which I think is important. And I know many of you joined this presentation are thinking, I thought this was about onboarding and orientation. For us, it's always about the why. Why
Yes.
do we put these practices in place? Because we want to better our culture always, because that impacts our kids and it impacts our community. Last November, we passed a $114.4 million referendum for construction bonds, and we had a 72% voter approval rate in our community. That doesn't just happen because they like us. That happens because our community has trust in us and they hear from our staff that this is a good place to work, that this is necessary, that, like we're honest people. Like that was really, really telling for us to really show us that we're in a good place because our taxpayers, they pay high taxes. And if they're trusting us with their money, that that's one of the highest compliments. And we don't take that for granted. He just showed you our culture scores last Thursday night
Mhm.
at 10 p.m. We signed a tentative agreement with our teachers union. We have teachers unions here in Illinois. We have to bargain contracts. We got it done in 5 sessions, 5 large
Yeah.
sessions. We have never, ever in the history of our district finished in 5 sessions. Normally what ends up happening is our contract it expires at the end of June. We normally have to keep bargaining to October. Then our business office has to do retro pay. You could imagine it's not easy. And I will share this with you. The reason we were able to get this done is because we work so collaboratively with our teachers union. The culture we built pre-negotiations carried on at the table,
Yes.
and it's going to carry on post negotiations. And we had staff members for the first time since 2008. I've been negotiating on behalf of the district. We've never experienced this. I had teachers emailing me saying, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm
Yeah.
so relieved that we got this passed. I really appreciate all of your hard work. Thank you for collaborating. It's just a huge relief going into summer. So I share these things with you because it's so important as you bring administrators in who understand what our purpose is, because as administrators, we are no longer teaching the kids. The teachers are teaching the kids. And it's really important that we know that we need to support and we need to develop and we need to coach the teachers. But our administrators, they need that support too. So they need to feel that from the moment they walk in the doors here in our district. Michael's going to share a little bit with you about mentorship, which I think is really important as you onboard new administrators.
Yeah, we talked a lot about so far just the why and how we celebrate people, but there's also a level of what are you doing to support your admin along the way? So one of the things that we do is we partner with a lot of different organizations to support our members. So whether you're a principal or an assistant principal, we make sure that you have a mentor from the Illinois Principals Association who support you for 2 years. Or if you're part of our payroll team or our business team, we make sure we work with you at NIASBO. I think even Monica, you were able to find someone to mentor our payroll clerk by making sure they had connections. So we really strive to make sure that every single person has someone from the outside that works with them and is someone that you can talk to in a safe voice and has that support. So we have those outside supports within our district, but we also make sure that we have internal supports, which I think is really unique for our district. So one of the things that is special is we have personal learning networks, which are modeled off the PLC from Dufour, where our administrators, our principals, our APs, they meet with a member of the cabinet. So there is Monica, and there is my PLN. And our PLN is a really special group of people. We meet every 2 weeks or so, and it's an opportunity to build relationships with one another, but also just to be supported. So whether we're talking about academics or instruction and how do we move the needle or what initiatives are we doing, or whether we're talking about culture and looking at our scores and planning together as a team, we have that support network together. And it's also an element in terms of just being held accountable, right? We hold each other accountable. We're there for one another. And so when we have this type of group, we're able to kind of dig into some deep topics and really feel like there's that level of support along the way. And I think there's no like secret to this. They're very highly effective. This past year, we'll go back to this real quick. This past year, 3 of the principals here had the highest levels of scores they've had in years past. And I think it just comes from the fact that we dedicate not only the resources, but the time to one another to talk about how we can continue to improve and develop and have those opportunities.
So something to kind of share, if you could go back, Michael, 2
Yeah.
slides. As Michael mentioned, we are able to get mentors through our state organizations, as he said, like the Illinois Principal Association, the Illinois Association of School Business Officials, like we have IASPA, the Illinois Association of School Personnel Administrators, but we also know that that's not always the case for some of these roles. Like, for example, I have a director of multilingual services, and I really wanted to make sure that he got really great mentorship. So we actually found someone and paid them, they're a consultant, to mentor him. And he said, it is the most amazing person. Thank you. I think it's really important to really think about like how you could really support, Michael mentioned the payroll clerk, right? My gosh, what an important position. You want to make sure people are paid and people could also like deal with some of the tough customer service calls. But as he mentioned, like this PLN that we've created, this not only includes our principals, but our associate principals, because going back to what he was saying, they're supporting our kids. So
Yep.
it's not just about me meeting with our principals and associate principals. And we said that we have the highest scores. It's not just the highest culture scores. We're now seeing buildings to have the highest culture scores also are starting to get the highest achievement
Yeah.
scores on our state tests. And also our local growth scores are also up. But we also conduct walkthroughs. And again,
Yes.
like larger organizations, sometimes it feels a little bit disjointed. I'm fortunate enough, I go on these walkthroughs. So I'm in the classrooms with our principals and associate principals, and we're looking at what's happening in the classroom. But more importantly, again, we go back to the why. It's going back into a closed door and saying, okay, what did we see? What kind
Yep.
of feedback are you going to give our teachers? And like, like it's so easy to give the good feedback, right? Where you could celebrate and say, that was amazing. And here's why. But then like, what about the ones that you're like, I don't know what that was? Like,
Mhm.
how do I frame that feedback? And it's often, hey, can we talk about this? And like, what questions would we ask? What would that meeting look like? So again, as you're thinking about like onboarding and orienting your administrators, it's really thinking about like, how do we support them to coach and develop our teachers through sometimes tough feedback or tough situations? Because we know it's easy to recognize for all the positive stuff, but how do we give supportive feedback that's going to help improve our student outcomes? Okay, so orientation. We have new teacher orientation, and we have a little mini orientation for our new administrators. And so if Michael clicks on that orientation process, we meet with our cabinet. And again, this is where you have to have a quarterback. You need someone to say like, hey guys, there are certain things that we need our new administrators to learn from some of our executive leaders or, in a high school department chairs, like who's going to meet with them when and who needs to be the audience. So for example, if you go down to student information systems for the building level administrators. So for example, like, our our new principals and our associate principals, they need to know the ins and outs of our
Mhm.
school information systems in order to build master schedules, in order to look up information for the students. So we have our student information data manager meet with them as a small group. And what I always say is like, can you do this in an hour or less,
Yeah.
so to speak? Because no one wants to sit through a whole day of meetings, too overwhelming, right? So we kind of split it up into different days. But like what I need to know about student information system is so different than the building level administrator. So we kind of brainstorm like who needs to know what and kind of like divvying that up. Another example is if you look at Introduction to Skyward, that's something that we use for school budgeting, accounting, and purposes. So we talk about like, okay, the principals are going to have a different meeting than the new directors and the assistant superintendents. So again, we want to help frame it for different departments, who's getting what and when. And again, you need someone to be the quarterback to say, like, let's not forget this group. Oftentimes, like when we have like singletons, right? Like our director of transportation, our director of operations, like who's going to be there to guide them in some of these systems. And that's what we do through this orientation. What we've learned is do not put it all on 1 week, do not put it all in one day, try to spread it out. But really make sure that you dedicate the time that's necessary. And what we like is bringing them together if there's a small group so that they can ask questions and learn from each other. For employee evaluation, collective bargaining, employee discipline, I bring the principals and the new associate principals together. So we kind of go through the collective bargaining agreement. Normally, I ask another building level leader to join me so that they can also kind of help them through our processes and our procedures and our collective bargaining agreements, what that means like.
So
Okay.
Monica mentioned this a little bit earlier. We also have something in our district called go-to partners. And I'm actually convinced that this came about because of me, because when I started working here 6 years ago in the summer, I called every assistant superintendent there was and asked a million questions. So I think we put this in place because of me. So go-to partners, I think, is actually a really valuable system we have in place. So Monica will send out her communication with you with all of your welcome and all your information. And attached to it also is your assigned go-to partner. So when you're coming in on the July 1st and you walk into your office for the first time, you undoubtedly have all these different questions. How do I do this? How do I do that? The go-to person is going to be your person over the summer that's going to really kind of support you through the onboarding process. They're that person who reaches out to you for the first week of school or first week on the job and they say, hey, let's have lunch. Let's connect. What are you worried about? They check in with you out the summer. It's an extra layer that we put in place because we realize that people do have a lot of questions and they may not know who to go to or what to ask or what systems to put in place. So it's an extra layer to help guide you until we really start the school year and support you along the way.
I will share with you, when I ask people to be a go-to person, like I just called Jamie Kahn recently, she's our principal at Braeside, and I said, hey, I'm going to have 2 new principals at the elementary level. Do you mind being the go-to person for our new principal at Sherwood and our new principal at Wayne Thomas? First of all, she's like, this is such an honor. Thank you. Um, they look at it as like we're entrusting them to kind of be the guide for our new people. And second of all, they also learn so much from the people coming in. So I just saw someone ask, is this, a paid position or stipend? Nope, it's not a paid position or stipend. We just recognize them for, being the go-to person, but no, it's not. People just do it because they really they really want to give back
Yeah.
to the organization. I'll share the go-to person. Decorates the office and literally they
Yeah.
get so excited. Like Indian Trail, they're the home of the Tigers. So when Annie Orlov, who is in her second year at Oak Terrace, and now these people have experienced it, so they get excited too. When Sydney Walder was coming in, she went on Amazon. I think she bought every inflatable like floaty that she could find for a pool that had the theme of a tiger. It was hysterical. Sydney walked in her office and they were like ginormous tigers. I didn't even know these existed for like the pool floats, but they do.
Oh.
Huge in her office. They had like balloons and all this stuff. So they get really excited. They also connect with them. They take them to lunch. It's just very, very kind.
Mhm.
They partner with them and they're just their guide.
Yep. And I think it's not a stipend position, like you said. It's an honor, and it's also our way of to try to develop our leaders. And I think some of the little things that they do is I remember when we go to district meetings, they save you a seat. So you're not worried about when you walk in, you're like, who am I going to sit by for the first time? I don't know anybody. It's just the little things that we want to kind of take off people's plates as they start to transition to a building or office. And they're like, I'm worried about this. We want to take that away from you so you can focus on what's important, the why.
So the other thing we do is called onboarding. So you could see here, we literally list out every single new administrator, and we assign them to people to literally meet with them on weeks 1, 2, 3, month 3, and then I
Mhm.
believe month 6. And you could see, Mike, we could go back really quick.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect, it's right there. You could see that what we try to do is we try to pair people up with not their go-to person, not their mentor from, another organization, but people within the organization that will just simply sit down with them and ask them onboarding questions where we could swoop in and support them if needed. So if you scroll to the top, Michael,
Yeah.
we even include our superintendent.
Yeah.
So a principal is meeting with the superintendent. Our director of communications and community engagement is meeting with our director of technology. You could see that I met with a new associate principal. Our payroll manager met with our assistant soup for student services. I could tell you honestly, it's almost better to pair someone up with someone who's not in the department, because
Yeah.
sometimes new employees feel a little bit guilty if you say like, hey, do you have all the equipment that you need? They might not tell if it's a supervisor, right? They don't want that person to feel like, no, I don't have what I need. So we purposely meet with people from other departments so that we could support them. So Michael's showing you here, like in weeks 1 through 2, when we meet with them, what I do and like what a lot of people do is I send them the questions ahead of time and I'll say, pick 3 to 5 questions that you want to talk about this week. So here's a question I ask, like, what do you like about the job in the district or the school? We might ask like, who do you talk to when you have questions about work? Do you feel comfortable asking? Because of the systems of support that we have, you'll be shocked within the first 2 weeks, people could start listing off people that they feel comfortable asking questions to.
Yeah.
I already asked, like, did you feel welcome during your first day? Like, these are things. Then we have like, week 3, we meet with them. If you keep scrolling, we have week 4, we meet with them, and we set these things up ahead of time in our calendars to make sure that we are able to, you know, set aside time. It's usually 30 minutes. So like week 3, this is a great question. What are the ground rules for calling you after work hours?
Yeah.
Like, we know we've been given a phone. It's in our contract, right? It says you have to be available for emergencies. But like, can I call Michael after 5? Or is it kind of like hey, unless you have emergencies, like I'm really busy from 5 to 7, right? These are really good things to learn. And then we share them with each other in order to help us kind of like guide these relationships. And then you could see in like month 3, we also have these. I'm seeing that people are asking for edit access. As soon as this is done, we'll grant you viewership if you don't have it. And then we meet with them in month 5 as well. Like we'll talk to them about like, what are your personal career goals, or what are your long-term goals? It's okay if they say, I'm not really sure, but sometimes people have conversations and say, I'm really interested in HR, or I'm really interested in fill in the blank. And that's where we can possibly like talk about, like we have tuition reimbursement for doctoral programs. Sometimes we find out that people want to seek endorsements. Sometimes people are looking to like attend a conference. These are just really good questions to start the conversations about some of the topics that we might not have asked them if we didn't have the time set aside.
Mhm. So I know we're kind of running out of time here, but the summer is often a quieter time where a lot of school districts do various professional development. In the past, we've done the power of moments. We've looked at instructional coaching philosophies. We've gone to PLCs at trainings. In every school year, we also go to a Human X Cultural Conference. So I know every district does some level of professional development over the summer where their teams attend. One of the things I think that we do really well and it's unique is that we have these things set up pretty early on in the school year, February or March. So what we like to do is whenever we offer a contract from someone and they accept, we try to make it a really big point to make sure that they feel valued and accepted. So we extend them an invitation right away. We
Mhm.
just think it was just a couple weeks ago, Monica, we actually sent out the invitation for Human X,
Yeah.
where we gave the dates, the hotel room, we asked for all the allergies, all that stuff. And you go on that list, and it's amazing. All the new hires are literally the first ones to sign up.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's been a year where we've gone to Human X where we haven't had every single person attend this conference, and even before their start date, because they want to feel like they're a part of something else, something bigger and special. And I think it really sends this message of you're one of us to them.
And I think, Michael, you just hit on this. The key point of this is planning ahead.
Yeah.
We just hired a ton of people in February and March. Well, sometimes people don't communicate with people until July 1. So if we know there's things going on in the summer, I always text them and say, hey, this is not required because you're new and I know that you haven't planned for this. You're welcome to join us. And as Michael said, 9 times out of 10, unless they're on vacation,
Oh,
they're like, thank you so much. This is awesome. I can't
yep.
wait. Like, I really appreciate you including me in this. Like, people feel very, very valued when you've planned ahead. And anytime that they can experience something with their colleagues before the start of the year, what I've learned is, as Michael said, they just feel more included and feel better prepared to work alongside the staff when they feel they have that network already established to help them before they start the school year.
Yeah.
Um, I'll share. So as Michael mentioned, we've got transitions, and
Yeah.
I'm sharing this with you because I experienced this myself
Yeah.
when I went from being an associate principal to a principal. Transitions are really tough in our organization, and we really have to take time and think about this. And Michael's going to share with you a little bit of a lesson that we've learned. And
Yeah.
as much as I love the positive affirmations and things we're doing, we're a work in progress. So we're going to share a
Yeah.
little bit of, you're going to learn from us right now.
Yeah, so it's not all, I think a lot of things that we're doing are really proud of, and we've seen the impact of them. And so this is my school, and I think I came in 2018 and we did a lot of those peak moments, right? We recognized staff, we make sure they felt supported. And throughout the time, I think what you see here is that anytime you're above 80%, that is something to really celebrate. So we have been a school over the past 5 years that have been 80s, 90s, and even at some point 95%, which when you do the math, that is literally all but one person is highly engaged and satisfied. But one of the lessons that I've learned this year, and I think Dr. Schrader and I have talked a lot about, is how do you prepare for a transition? So this year in November, we announced that I would be leaving Wayne Thomas to go to district office. I had been the principal through the pandemic. I'd been the principal through, unfortunately, a mass shooting tragedy in our neighborhood. So I've been with a lot of these people who forever. And when I left, we didn't necessarily have a really strong transition plan for how I was going to leave. Next thing happened, my AP left. So this slide really is more along the lines of the importance of really thinking through how are you transitioning your leaders out of roles and how are you transitioning leaders into those roles? And on top of that, along the way, how are you supporting those individuals that is it's their job to kind of look after and support along the way? And you can see from this, we went from a 95% down to 79 this year with some of those pieces. So it's always a constant learning and in terms of just how do we make sure we're refining our practices, but more importantly, just making sure that you have a transition plan in place as you start to move people in and out of roles.
I'll just add something that's really important. Yeah, I've been here for 18 years. Some of these staff members that Michael works with are my former students. I know I look like I was four. I'm not four. I'm not 22 years old, but they've been around. And they said, "Well, we're so excited that Michael's coming to district office. We're kind of bummed. We're not happy. We're losing our principal." And so don't ever underestimate changes that occur
Yeah,
when promotions and thinking about like, how do we support those staff members through the changes? Because you can see we took a dip.
yeah,
We know that like the new principal coming in, she's an associate principal in another district, Michael, another school, I should say,
yeah,
within our
yeah.
district. But like that's something for us to another learning lesson for us in this year. So Michael's going to share with you, I think, something even more important that people oftentimes forget about, and that is offboarding employees. So if you could change the screen.
Yeah,
Um, you know, People leave your organization for all sorts of reasons. Sometimes they get promotions and leave the district for other positions. Sometimes they leave because they're retiring. Sometimes they leave not on their own accord. But the bottom line is that I think it's always really important to communicate with people, like what are the expectations of how you leave our organization? And just like we had a plan for when you enter, it's important. So if you go back to that screen, Michael, one of the things that we talk about is we send them kind of like this little letter, and I'm going to have you read this just silently to yourself, reflecting from something the Illinois Principals Association wrote about beginnings and endings. I swiped it because I thought this was really, really good. So just read that 1 second to yourself. Okay, so why is it important to stay? Well, we've learned. We've had people leave the organization and delete their Google folders. Yeah, that's our work, right? We've had some people like, hey, where are your building keys? Yeah, those
Mhm.
are our keys. We've had where it's like, where's the cord to the laptop? That's part of the device. So if Michael clicks on the exit procedure, as silly as it is, this has really helped us. We write, what's your, what's the date, the last day of the office? Again, a lot of our contracts are June 30th, but you might take vacation days. You might have some days paid out. Like, so we, again, identify what's the last day in the office. It's okay if you're going to take vacation days and it's not going to be June 30th. We remind people like, here are the things that you remove from the office. The other ideas, these are what you don't remove, right? Here's miscellaneous. This is what's, required that you're returning. What is your final checkout? We get purchase cards, like a lot of people, P cards. So like, hey, yeah, you have to return the P cards. I have each person meet with my executive assistant and deliver this. It doesn't have to be me, and it's purposefully not me. It's usually an executive assistant because there's all sorts of reasons why people leave an organization. And I want people to feel like they're leaving with their dignity. If they don't want to have a meeting with me, that's okay. So this has been a game changer for us. It helps. Michael, if you keep scrolling, it'll show us then too. There's some housekeeping items that we have for us of like what needs to be turned off and so forth. So we are only 2 minutes over.
Not
But
bad.
if you have any questions, drop them in the chat. And again, if you want to click on the links and you have access, and if you don't have access right now, we will give you access. We are here to share information with you and also learn from you. So if you see something and you're like, hey, I have something that's better, share it with us, please. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Monica and Michael. So we do have a few questions in the chat. We have a little bit of time since we have our break.
Great.
Lindsay Bowman asked, does the go-to person receive a stipend?
I think we answer
We,
that.
we
Nope,
addressed that one. Yep. Nope.
not in this case. Yep.
A lot of positive feedback. Love everything you're doing. Excited to get the materials. Excited to begin implementing some of your processes. Great information. Thank you for sharing. Jessica said, I came in late. Where can I find the materials? Jessica, they're going to be on ASPA's website at the very bottom under events, the Professional Development Material Index. I emailed you a link to that, so just check in my email. And then, yeah, a lot of great feedback, great information with many positive ideas. So thank you, Monica and Michael, for sharing your time with us
a
this
pleasure.
morning. For everyone that is in the Zoom room, we are going to take about a 12-minute break. So we're going to reconvene at 11 o'clock Central Standard Time. In this room at 11 o'clock, we'll have communicating benefits. And then in the Zoom room from this morning that Kelly did her welcome and introduction, we have bridging generational divides, effective mentorship in the modern workplace. So again, that'll be at 11 o'clock Central Standard Time. So feel free to grab some coffee, go to the bathroom, and we'll see you all in a few minutes.